Alright, hello everyone. Um, this is me, Gymnast86, and I'm basically just gonna be talking over this run of Ocarina of Time 3D any percent that I did a really long time ago. I guess maybe not a long time ago. This was actually a run that I did back in February offline, and it's technically the current record for Ocarina of Time 3D any percent, but I never got around to uploading it and kind of forgot about it after a while. But recently, I remembered that I had this, and so I was like, I should probably upload this because it's now 4 months later, and yeah. So, anyway. um, the main reason that I remembered this is because for the third time this year, SGDQ submissions opened up again, and I wanted to submit this for SGDQ, which is going to be held in August this year, so August 16th to 22nd, and I just wanted to add this to my submission list, so I should probably put this video up, but I didn't just want to put it up as a plain video, so I thought I'd put commentary over it to make it a little bit better, hopefully. So anyway, yes, this is Ocarina of Time 3D. If you've seen the current any percent run for the original Ocarina of Time, which is currently like 7.5 minutes long, to preface that, no, none of the crazy stuff that they do in that run works in Ocarina of Time 3D for various reasons. That being, like, the arbitrary code execution warp to the credits and the SRM and all that stuff. SRM, or stale reference manipulation, does work in Ocarina of Time 3D, but it's very hard to research, just due to some differences in how the games work and how many debug tools we have available for the 3DS to help with researching stuff like this. So we're not going to be seeing any SRM craziness in this run, but it's still a pretty interesting run to watch, I think. Shows off the progress that happened at late last year and early this year, in past December/January. One thing that is the same, though, is that we still have to go through the opening cutscene where Navi bonks on the fence and tells Link to come wake up because he needs to save Hyrule, which he will do in less than half an hour, so should be a pretty good day for the kingdom. One of the first things that I have to point out about this run is that the text in this game is kind of glitchy. For most of the text boxes that are in this game, there's a one-frame window where if you press the B button while the text box is attempting to form itself, then all of the text in the text box will appear instantly and you can cancel it instantly, like on that second text box that I got back there. So that is called quick text, and it can end up saving a lot of time depending on which text boxes you can get. It is frame perfect though, so unfortunately we don't get every single text box with it. And there are some text boxes which don't work. The text boxes whenever we go into a shop don't work. I don't know why shop text doesn't work, but it just doesn't. And whenever we have black text on a white background, it also doesn't work. So that's all the information you need to know about text. But now we just do the standard stuff, going to get the Kokiri sword. Obviously, Ocarina of Time 3D runs at 30 frames per second, which is 10 more than the original's 20 frames per second. And also, in case anyone is confused, this is run on a 3DS console, this is not run on an emulator. Specifically a new 2DS XL that I have a capture board installed on, which allows me to record footage in pretty good quality. So here we got the Kokiri sword. Oh my god, I did not get any quick text there, that was not very good. Usually I tend to get, at least the second text box in, series of text boxes that, come after each other. Because you can kind of make, a mashing rhythm with the B button to get, quick text pretty decently. So hopefully we'll see some of that later. But now that we have the Kokiri sword, we can actually escape the forest right away. We don't need anything else. We can use a sword technique called the triple slash clip, where I'm going to swing my sword 3 times and then put it away to make Link take this giant step backwards, and it allows me to clip through the actor that tries to prevent us from leaving the forest. So, very useful technique. It means that we don't have to complete the Deku tree right away. Though we will be coming back to complete the Deku tree, which you can see the Kokiri Emerald is the icon for the last split, with Live Split on the left, so We will be completing the Deku Tree in this run, but it's also going to be the only dungeon that gets completed. And now we get the Ocarina. The Ocarina is important because it allows us to get both Magic and Ferori's Wind, which are pretty important things for this run to complete as fast as it can. Also, again, this happened 4 months ago, so I might react weirdly if I see something that I think I did badly. So, like with the Kokiri Sword text boxes back there. A 4:18 escape time is pretty decent. Like, generally anything under 4 minutes and 20 seconds is good. Generally for any percent, though, you want to get... Or, like, we're a little more strict on what times we want, because any percent is the shortest category of this game. And now we get to meet our lovely friend, the Owl. Unfortunately, we can't skip him by just doing a really slow extended super slide in this game, like you can in the original. The only way you can generally skip owls is by just avoiding their triggers altogether, which in this case isn't possible. Or by doing continuous item swapping between, like, Link's sword and a Deku stick. But obviously we don't have a Deku stick right now, so that's not going to be particularly useful. And of course now we're just backwalking across Hyrule Fields. Backwalking is the easiest form of movement to do fast. Frame-perfect side-hopping as Child Link is technically faster than backwalking, but again, it's frame-perfect, so most of the time you're not going to do it correctly to save time over backwalking. I'm also going to get 2 red rupees here because I will need to buy a Deku Shield later, because, you know, you need a Deku Shield to get into the Deku Tree, of course. And now we're just rolling through the market. I want to spend, obviously, as little time here as possible because I want the day-night cycle to be continuing forward as fast as it can, since I'm going to be getting the weird egg from Malin. And then the weird egg only hatches when it becomes dawn, so I want to make as much daytime, or as much of the day-night cycle to pass as possible. Also, the owl text, most of that isn't actually quick text. Like, some text boxes in this game actually do, like, you can make them instantly go by. The first text box with the owl wasn't that, but the rest of them were. So right here, I'm actually going to intentionally get caught by this guard, because this is going to reload the area. And the reason we did this instead of, like, going in and out of the market again is because if I reload the area like this, I only have to go through a single loading zone, and I will make sure that the day-night cycle is still moving, right? Because if I go into the market, the day-night cycle is not going to be moving in the market. So this actually advances the day-night cycle further ahead by a few seconds. And it still gives me enough time to get to Talon before dawn, so that I can actually push the boxes as far as they can go before dawn, and then, yeah, be able to use the boxes to get into the crawl space to eventually get to the guards. So not much else is happening right now. Navi's like, hey, I have information, and we don't really care, so we're not going to be talking to her. She actually will be useful for a glitch later, though. Alright, let's see. I wonder if I got the box clip in this run. Nope. Oh, I didn't even go for it. Yeah, once you, when you pull that box back to the last position, if you pull it back and then hold forward on, like, the correct frame, or, like, with the correct timing, you'll be able to, like, just walk through the box. It's a weird thing you can do. I don't know why you can do it, but you can do it. Alright, so now we woke up Talon, and we can push the box over. We don't have to push the box all the way over because we can just do a jump and sort of weirdly clip up onto the floor right there. That jump is actually weirdly precise, and the reason I didn't roll before the jump is because it would have messed up the positioning. So these are the guards. This is sort of like the one RNG part in any percent, because the time between each of these guards, like, set positions, or like the time that it takes them to move to those positions, excuse me, the time that they stay in their positions is random, I should say. Thankfully, I got through there pretty quickly. I kind of just disregarded that last guard at the end. Because you can actually avoid getting caught completely if you do frame-perfect side-hopping, because you need to be on the ground for at least 2 frames for the guards to properly catch Link. So, you know, if you're really good at frame-perfect side-hopping, you never have to worry about the guards, but unfortunately, nobody is perfect at frame-perfect side-hopping, unless it's like a tool-assisted speedrun or something. So now we're talking to Zelda. Just more quick text and cutscenes, basically. I guess I can talk about like why this run is a lot shorter than it used to be, because like if we go back a year ago, the record for this game was just above about 37 minutes, I believe. But the final time of this run is 29 minutes and 5 seconds, which is a pretty big jump going from like 37 to 29. And the reason that we now have this huge time save is because we figured out how to beat the game without ever collecting any explosives, and we figured out how to do it in a way that's like actually fast. Basically, we figured out how to get into the Furore's Wind Fountain, the Furore's Wind Fairy Fountain, without any sort of explosives, right? Because normally you would need like bombs or bomb chews to get in there to break the wall and actually make your way to the loading zone. But thankfully, there's a really complicated and like not very obvious way that you can get in there. So we'll be seeing that later. It's actually quite wild how it works. Of course, to use Furore's Wind, we also need to get magic without explosives, right? Because pretty much all the fairy fountains in this game are blocked by like some kind of wall that you need to blow up, or in the case of Devil Magic, with like rocks that you need to hit with the Megaton Hammer. So we also need to get magic, as I said, without explosives, which we will see in like 5 or 6 minutes from here. We've known how to get magic without explosives for a pretty long time, actually. For, I think it's about 2 years ago, Zora figured out how to get magic without explosives. I actually made a video on this entire subject of how we went about discovering this glitch, and I can't, or not this glitch, but like how we went about discovering all these different things that would allow us to get into the Furore's Wind Fountain without explosives, and ultimately skip explosives entirely, and I can't remember like some of it. It was a few months ago though, so I was actually working on this, or working on that video when I got this run. This run is not perfect, by the way, because you can see I'm already like 10 seconds behind my previous PB, but it was good enough to beat my previous PB and be the current world record, compared to the next best time, which is 29 minutes and 10 seconds, so a 5-second record. Alright, now we've gone through most of the cutscenes, so things will start to finally get a little bit interesting. It's a bit unfortunate that we still have to go through, like, the Zelda's Lullaby cutscene and all that stuff, like, the intended way. And even after all this time, we still don't have a fast way of getting explosives early in this game. If we could get explosives actually early, like, you know, go to the bottom of the well and get the chest with 10 bomb chews in it, like, in not a lot of time, then we could probably do the Zelda cutscene after that and be able to skip the Zelda's Lullaby cutscene by dying with a bomb chew. But unfortunately, it's much too slow to get explosives. So now we just need to make our way over to Death Mountain, show the guard that blocks it Zelda's letter, and then we will be able to go up and get magic. Okay, that was good quick text. Got all 4 of those. Let's see how well I did on this next set. Oh, dang. Okay, looks like... Ooh, okay. Yeah, didn't get 2 of the big ones. That's unfortunate, but oh well. Alright, so Death Mountain Trail. Up here we're going to be seeing a trick known as a Forward Extended Super Slide, or FES for short. At least I hope so. I don't think I failed this. Basically, I'm going to hold what's known as ESS position on the control stick, and then I'm going to get damaged by that Tektite, and I'm going to keep on holding that control stick position. And when we hold that control stick position, Link's friction is set to a very low value that essentially just allows us to conserve our speed that we got from the damage. Because whenever Link gets damaged, he moves very fast for 1 frame, and we can keep this speed all the way over to Goron City. Now you're probably wondering, like, okay, well, why are we going to Goron City if we need to get magic? And the answer to that is that we actually can't get up to the magic fairy fountain because there are some boulders in the way. And again, we don't have explosives, and while we can get inside the fountain itself without explosives, we can't get past those 2 boulders without explosives right now. Or actually, okay, at the time of this video we couldn't, but at the time of this commentary, we actually could, technically, but it would... I think it would be kind of out of the way, but it would technically be possible, I believe. There's a new glitch discovered called Deku Stick, or just called, like, Quick Put Away in general, where we can actually blow up, or not really blow up, but we can destroy rocks that you'd be able to blow up with bombs by getting, like, these weird glitchy properties on the Deku Stick, and essentially jump slashing with a specific orientation against the boulder. It's very strange, but anyway. Right here, we also need to open up the path between Lost Woods and Goron City, because we're going to need to come back to Goron City later in the run. Also, right here, I'm doing a setup to actually unload the statue that's behind Darunia. Basically, it's just a version of heat manipulation that gets rid of the statue's collision by doing this weird set of transitions between Darunia's room and main Goron City, and then finally slashing our sword between the 2 rooms as we load them. So, a bit weird, but it makes getting up to the Magic Fairy Fountain appear much better. Beforehand, we had to do this really dumb trick called the Tektite Hover, where we'd get the infinite sword glitch and then hover off of some Tektites to skip over the 2 boulders that normally require explosives. So it has technically been possible to do that, but again, that's really stupid and no one liked doing it. But now we're up here in the Magic Fairy Fountain, and I'm going to be doing this setup to do a seam walk up here with a backflip, so I can get out of bounds. And from this out of bounds, I'm going to be doing a setup with some side hops and a side roll. I'm going to be getting to a specific position on the map here, and then I'm going to be turning around, backwalking very slightly off of the edge, and then I will jump slash into the loading zone for magic. I want to be careful to not have any speed, really, while I'm going off the edge, because I want to get the maximum distance forward that I can with the jump slash, right? Since we barely just made it into the edge of the loading zone right there. I don't know why the loading zone extends so far backwards like that in such a weird shape, but it does, so we can get in here. So that's how we get magic without explosives. Yeah, you know, just backflip up out of bounds on that one seam, and then you can just backwalk off the collision and jump slash in. It's kind of weird it took so long to discover that in hindsight, because I'm actually not like, I definitely didn't know we could get out of bounds before it was discovered that we could backflip up that seam. So I actually don't know when that was discovered, but feels like it should have been discovered a lot earlier. Not that it would have helped, really, without getting Furore's Wind without explosives. Right, because we've actually been able, like I've said, to get magic without explosives for a while, but Furore's Wind without explosives was a lot tougher to figure out. But now that we have magic, we can actually go and get Furore's Wind, because you need to get magic before you can get any of the fairy spells from any of the fairy fountains. Before I do that, though, I'm going to go and get a Deku Shield from the shop here. So we're going to be spending the 40 rupees that I got from the Hyrule Castle drawbridge, or the Market Town drawbridge, I guess. Obviously have to target that sign, very important right there. Totally was not a mistake on my part. I wasted like a second. So to get to the Furore's Wind Fountain, we're actually going to be going through the Lost Woods. Because the Lost Woods connects to Zora's domain, and then that connects to Zora's Fountain, which is where Furore's Wind is residing. But normally to get to the Zora's River link between Lost Woods and Zora's River, you need to have the Silver Scale, because it requires diving down deep enough to enter the loading zone that's down there. But thankfully, we actually do not need the Silver Scale. Instead, we're going to be doing a trick known as a Navi Dive. So I'm going to be positioning myself right here, turning to the right a little bit, and then I'm going to wait for Navi to appear. And I'm going to be doing the same triple slash technique that we heard, or not that we heard, that we saw earlier. Except instead of putting my sword away, I'm going to call Navi. And then, because Link is in a cutscene with Navi, he's the water physics doesn't affect him, so he just falls through the water, and then you can just swim to the loading zone. Also, another use of playing Zelda's Lullaby right here, which is to open up the waterfall to get to Zora's domain. The trick in the original game where you use a cucko to fly behind the waterfall does not work, so kind of need Zelda's Lullaby to do all of this stuff right here. And in we go. Zora's Domain looks very nice in the 3DS version. I quite enjoy the updated graphics. Alright, so we're also going to get an extra stick and some Deku Nuts right here. We're going to need Deku Nuts to defeat Goma in the Great Deku Tree, because we will not be getting the Slingshot, since Deku Nuts can do enough to stun Goma and make her vulnerable. Here we have another example of a triple slash clip. We're going to line up here, triple slash clip out of bounds, and this allows us to skip King Zora because we can just swim up through the out of bounds water that's right here. And that skips, of course, having to get, the Silver Scale and Ruto's Letter, which takes a few minutes. And now we are here at Zora's Fountain, where we have to somehow get out of bounds inside the loading zone for Furore's Wind. Obviously got to start off with that block. That was also totally not another mistake that happened. So we're actually going to be abusing what we call an invisible seam right here. So I'm going to do this weird-looking setup right here near the front of the fountain. And then I'm going to backwalk very slowly until Link gets stuck in the air, like this. And then, if I angle myself correctly and hold forward, I can then begin to climb up this seam, which I believe is technically just collision from the wall below. That's just weirdly placed upwards like this. So now, using that, I was able to get on top of the fountain. And now I'm doing this other really weird-looking setup, but this is all to get into a specific position, so that I can then do a jump slash clip into the Furore's Wind Fountain. So jump slash, and then when we hit the ground, we go through the wall. That jump slash clip is actually pretty precise. It's very easy to mess up if one of the parts of the setup doesn't go correctly. And even if you just shift your position slightly, it's sometimes not going to work. But thankfully it worked pretty fast here in this run, so I was able to save, or I think I was able to save most of the time on this segment. Yeah, so that was what ultimately made this entire route as it is possible now, because we could get into the Furore's Wind Fountain with no explosives. Which was actually a pretty big thing for this game, because not being able to skip explosives sort of plagued it. I don't want to say plagued, but inconvenienced it for a really long time as far as routes and stuff in this game went. Yeah, so that was actually almost a best segment, because I saved, a little under 23 seconds, it seems. Alright, so now that we have Furore's Wind, somehow we're going to have to get to the end of the game very fast. So the first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to go back to Goron City. If you remember, we opened up the path, or well, in Goron City, we blew up the rocks so that we'd actually be able to get into Goron City from the Lost Woods. You can technically get into Goron City from the start of the game, but the rocks are there to, like, you know, block you from actually getting into Goron City and sequence breaking the game. But we blew them up with a bomb flower, so they're open and we can go back. And when we get there, we're actually going to see one of the more powerful glitches in this game, which is known as restricted items. And restricted items is what it sounds like. It allows you to use items that would normally be restricted. In this case, it's going to allow us to use Furore's Wind. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to exit and re-enter Goron City from the top of Death Mountain Trail. Or from Death Mountain Trail, not the top. But yeah. And then I will be using restricted items to place Furore's Wind at the entrance point to Goron City. Also, we're going to jump slash into the loading zone here because that gives us 0 speed and allows us to come back to Goron City like half a second quicker or something. Alright, so the way restricted items is going to work is I'm going to put Furore's Wind on my X button, and because nothing is on the X button, once I return from the inventory screen, there's actually going to be one frame where I can use Furore's Wind without it being restricted. It's just like a slight oversight, but it's enough to allow for one frame that allows for the use of Furore's Wind. And in this game, if you can use Furore's Wind anywhere, it's very broken. So now that we've set the Furore's Wind point properly in Goron City, we're going to make our way over to the Deku Tree. And it looks like we have about 3 minutes left of the run, so we will get to see a very quick Deku Tree. I'll be getting one more stick right here so that I can defeat Queen Goma as fast as possible. And we also get our very last batch of text. Pretty good quick text right there. If you get all of these quick text boxes at the end, you can actually start moving before the Deku Tree's mouth finishes opening, which is kind of funny. But in we go. There's actually an updated strategy for the Deku Tree that I don't use here, which again uses a seam like we climbed up for the Furore's Wind Fountain. But I didn't know about it at the time, so I'm pretty sure it was discovered afterwards, so I unfortunately don't use it. But it would have saved probably like 10 to 15 seconds if it was done correctly. Basically, it would allow us to get up to the top of this first room without having to climb these vines or like deal with these Skulltulas right here. Because these Skulltulas are very annoying. But thankfully in this run, they were pretty nice to me, so I was able to get past them without losing too much time. And then right here, we're going to do the Basement 1 skip. I'm going to be using a Deku Stick and getting recoil off of the wall behind me to get an anti-grav off of the ceiling. And I was hoping that the web would unload when I did that, but either my positioning or my camera was off slightly, so unfortunately I had to come out around here and burn the web. That was definitely the biggest mistake of the run right there. Because otherwise I could have just gone down through the web and been under here like 10 seconds quicker. And then, of course, we have, 2, 3, 1, the classic puzzle. This is actually the reason that we get the shield in the run, is to do this right here. We actually didn't need the shield to get to the Deku Tree because it was nighttime, and Mido does not block you from going to the Deku Tree at nighttime. Alright, now it's time for Queen Goma. This is a very short boss, as we'll see in a moment. We're going to be using a trick known as the Broken Deku Stick glitch to beat her. Basically, the first Deku Stick jump slash I'm going to do is going to break my stick, but because it gets broken in a weird way, Link is going to be able to keep using the stick despite the fact that it's broken, and we can just slash Goma a few times, and she's dead. So, yay! Alright, now that Goma's dead, though, the dungeon is going to reveal the blue warp that's at the end. And what I'm going to be attempting to do here is using Furore's Wind at the same time as when I enter the blue warp. And due to how blue warps work in this game, this is actually going to trigger what's known as a wrong warp if I return Furore's Wind at the right time. It's going to essentially try to play the effects of going through the blue warp for the first time at the Goron City warp point that I was at, which when the game does that math together, just sort of ends up producing the credits sequence, as we can see here. And this is considered beating the game in the Ocarina of Time 3D community. Because if we continue to let this credit sequence play out, it's actually going to trigger unlocking the Master Quest version of the game, which happens when you beat this game normally. So it's like, well, game does believe that it's been beaten. To explain the wrong warp more, though, basically, when the game, or when you go through the blue warp of the Deku Tree the first time, and only the first time, the game will attempt to play the cutscene of the Deku Tree talking to you, telling you about Hyrule's creation, all that. But to get there, the game basically adds a value to the normal point that that the blue warp would send you to, which is right outside the Deku Tree. It adds that value to try and play the cutscene, but because we returned Furore's Wind to Goron City, instead the game tried to add that value to Goron City instead of Kokiri Forest. And it just so happens that since the credits is a giant sequence of cutscenes, the cutscene that we warped into was the credits portion of the Goron City portion of the credits cutscene, I should say. So that's why all this happened, and yeah, it's a pretty quick any percent run. I don't know if I would say it's easy necessarily. It's definitely possible to get a much faster run than this one right here. There's probably a better route that could be made for all of the quick put away stuff that was discovered to break boulders with Deku sticks. But yeah, so that's this game's any percent run. I hope you enjoyed my one-take commentary on this, and yeah, I think that'll be it for me. Thank you for watching, and enjoy the rest of this long credits cutscene. Bye.